coexistence of humans and wildlife. Our eco warriors are like environmental superheroes, armed with GIS tools and a deep love for nature, orchestrating a delicate dance where both people and wildlife can thrive. Their efforts transform potential conflicts into collaborations, proving that with a bit of ingenuity and a lot of heart, harmony between humans and animals isn't just a dream, it's a reality in the making. We are honored to invite Mr. Sanjay Shukla, Member Secretary, Central Zoo Authority, New Delhi, Mr. G. Mallikarjun, Director of Sanjay Gandhi National Park, and Mr. Naveen Khandelwal, Deputy Conservator of Forest Sitapur, to join us on the stage for a panel session. This session will focus on the crucial topic of coexistence of humans and animals, where your insights and expertise will contribute significantly to the discussion. Eminent wildlife filmmaker Mr. Ajay Suri will be moderating this session. I would now like to invite Mr. Amit Verma, Director Niti Aayog, to join us for the panel. Thank you so much, Mr. Verma, for joining us. And we may now begin with the panel discussion.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is a very interesting topic today, the best practices to promote coexistence between humans and wildlife. Now, this may, the title may seem very academic, but actually it's not. It has got different layers, and we'll try to, figure out what these are. When we say best practices, they may mean different things to different stakeholders. Best practices for wildlife management, wildlife officers may not be the best practices for wildlife or even for the people who are staying inside the sanctuaries, And as far as coexistence goes, I'm reminded of the fact that, reminded of a phrase which is in vogue nowadays, which is synchronicity, which says how in this universe, everything is interconnected. And it goes something like, there's an old adage which says that a butterfly fluttering its wings in Brazil can cause an earthquake in China. We are talking about the interconnectedness of everything. And I think that this topic also is somehow reflected in this thing. And, I'll start with Mr. Mallikarjun, because the film that you showed, it's really an eye-opener. My team a few years ago, we had made a film there on Sanjay Gandhi National Park. But there are two sides of the coin. This is very good. This is something which, everybody in India is appreciative about. But please do not forget the other side of the coin. You have district Chandrapur in Maharashtra, where the highest number of, people are getting killed by tigers. 52 fatalities in 1 year. So how do you reconcile that? I'm asking you this question because you come from the same state.
So whatever you are telling is true also, sir. But we have to see this in two ways. What you are told in one way, that you are concentrating, you are explaining about the conflicts. But at the same time, why conflict is happening? You see the kind of conservation efforts which has been put by the Maharashtra Forest Department that has resulted in manifold increase in tiger number in that particular state, by particular especially landscape. Mm-hmm. In Chandrapur district itself, we have more than 200 tigers. Just to imagine in a single district, if you have more than 200 tigers, there are equally higher number of tigers are there staying outside the protected area, just like in Brahmapuri. Mm-hmm. So obviously the conflict is going to happen. But in order to manage and to mitigate, our state has taken a lot of innovative initiations. So one is the Atal Bihari Janvan Yojana, we have started with it there. So that has given a lot of results. At the same time, you are telling that there is 50 human deaths happening in our in our state, but still there is no human cry. People have accepted that. Mm-hmm. People have accepted that we have to coexist with the tigers there, because tigers, they are giving much more to that particular community in Chandrapur and in Nagpur. So when the people see the both whatever the gains they will get because of the conservation. And they also compare that with the losses. Then they take the conscious decision to
Okay.
coexist with that one.
Okay. I would also like to draw Mr. Amit Verma into this conversation. By the way, I met Amit Verma a few years ago when he was the deputy director of Corbett Park, and Mr. Khati had introduced me to him. That was a few years ago. And Verma Sahab, now you are in Niti Aayog, and like Mr. Khati and Mr. Dheeraj who are sitting here, you have been associated with Corbett. You know, when it comes to the issue of coexistence, Corbett is always in the limelight and often for wrong reasons. You know, Mr. Khati just said that how these corridors are being disturbed. I know for a fact that, you know, at one time, say 15 years ago, elephants from Corbett Park would regularly migrate to Rajaji Park and vice versa. There was this corridor just ahead of Kordwa. It used to be 2 to 3 kilometer wide corridor, which is now shrunk to just 200 feet or 200 yards. And secondly, of course, one of the biggest eyesores in the Corbett Tiger Reserve is Sundarkhal village. So with all these factors, do you think a peaceful coexistence between people and animals will be possible in Corbett, Uttarakhand? What's your take?
Yeah, thank you so much. And I would add to your list, Mehra sir is also here, who had been the director while I was the deputy director. So, see, coexistence is a cultural term, and a coexistence for a person in Africa would be different than what we have in Uttarakhand versus what we have in US. In US, human-wildlife conflict is just, if you have a look at the tiger or any animal which has a potential to cause harm to you, that is sufficient cause to shoot an animal. Whereas in India, our tolerance levels are very high. So a coexistence would mean different things at different places. And also the kind of education and the exposure which people have now through the access of internet and YouTube and other social media channels, that has also changed the perception of how people perceive this coexistence. So having said that, I would say that when we talk about human-wildlife conflict and coexistence, there are certain things which evoke more emotions into us than anything else. So, for example, a city may be losing 2 or 3 persons every day through road accidents, but that would not cause that hue and cry as a single leopard kill in the whole year would. So again, I mean, our acceptance of belief that an animal which is probably what people think in their subconscious is an inferior being than human beings is causing harm to them becomes more unacceptable to them as compared to anything which is human-induced. So those are certain issues we have to deal with the psyche of the people, and what I think is considering the population we have of tigers in Corbett Tiger Reserve, which is the highest tiger density in the world, and also in terms of the human density which is just outside the park. I think the number of conflicts is extremely minimal. I mean, we can't really imagine that a tiger density of more than 20 per 100 square kilometer would only lead to very few fatalities, and that too, most of the time it is the forest staff who is patrolling the area rather than the villagers themselves. So a lot of conflict is also dependent on the kind of habitat and what is the habit of the local people there. So Sanjay Gandhi National Park is a case in point. My whole wildlife journey started from that point. I'm an alumni of IIT Bombay, and Sanjay Gandhi National Park was an area which we used to frequently visit, and also many of the wildlife areas as wildlife club member I went to. There was huge amount of conflict there, but there have been studies in terms of behavior of what forest department itself was doing in terms of catch and release of animals and the intensity of people going inside the park, and certain behavioral changes actually reduce the conflict quite a bit. So in terms of existence, I think that in Uttarakhand also, we have forests like you can take example of Lansdowne, which is not a park, or Ramnagar, which is frequently visited by wild animals, but the conflict levels are low. But if you move up to Garhwal, probably there is hunting going on there. The density of wild prey is much less. Much less density of leopards cause a much greater conflict in those areas. So it's a function of people's attitude towards wildlife, towards the prey base, how if they have habits of hunting, and their own acceptance of if anything goes, or how do they react to that kind of situation. So it's a complex coining of the term coexistence, but as far as numerically, we have to if you have to see that whether 10, 15, 20, 30 years down the line, if both of them would exist in these densities, that I would say yes. I mean, they'll very happily exist. Yeah.
Let's have a national perspective on it from Mr. Sanjay Shukla, who is a member secretary, Central Zoo Authority. So you have heard two of our eminent panelists speak about this issue. Where do you think the shortfall lies? What are the fault lines? And what all can be done to strengthen this coexistence?
So before I take your questions, I would like to pay my tribute because today is the Forest Martyrs Day. So I pay my heartfelt tribute to all those forest soldiers who sacrificed their life in protecting the forest, the natural resources and the wildlife. तो उन सभी को मेरी विनम्र श्रद्धांजलि सभी वन योद्धाओं को. Now coming to your question, and I'll take from where Amit said about the Corbett. So coming to the national perspective, like if we take the example, those animals which cause the maximum number of conflict, or you can say the death. So if you take the figures of last 5 years, so the elephant is one species which causes maximum number of human deaths and injuries. Now, again, if you just take the figure, the average annual figure is close to 500 deaths because of elephants, and tiger just 100. And half of that mostly happens in the state of Maharashtra. Similarly, for elephants also, if you take the figure, the total estimated population of elephants in our country is 30,000. And half of these population are in the 5 southern states. Close to 16,000 are in the 5 southern states. And the state having the maximum number of elephant population, that is Karnataka, the number of human deaths is very, very less in Karnataka, despite having a very large number of elephant population. The maximum number of human deaths occur in the state of West Bengal, Odisha, and Jharkhand. Now, again comes the question of, I mean, when we talk of coexistence, you can define it in different ways, whether it is a tolerance or acceptance, because coexistence is a sort of utopian dream to have coexistence with these animals. So coexistence can only happen if the conflict is absent. If you remove the conflict, then only the coexistence can happen. We can just all put our efforts towards coexistence. So now again, making a comparison of our country, like we revere gods. We are celebrating recently we celebrated Ganesh Chaturthi, और अभी बहुत सारे हम लोगों के घर में अभी गणपति जी विराजमान हैं. And this is in our culture, in our mythology, by like we revere animals like elephant and tiger and many other animals. Sri Lanka से अगर हम compare करते हैं, the total elephant population in our country is 30,000. Sri Lanka is just 1/4, 7,500. If you take the number of human deaths in Sri Lanka, it is 500. Just 100. And number of elephant deaths is 500. In our country, despite having this much of huge human population, 1.45 billion, Sri Lanka just had 23 million human population. The number of human deaths is just 100, elephant death is 500. In India, human death is 500, elephant death is just 100. So here we have a very high tolerance level and we have acceptability. Our data was analyzed for 3 states related to the deaths, human deaths, because of elephants in the state of Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, and Assam. And we came to a conclusion that even in death, if you just analyze the deaths also, there are certain villages or certain hot spots where such happen. So now again comes like what are the major issues which cause this conflict and what can be done to remove these issues, and that can be addressed, that will help in the coexistence as such in a larger way. So this is the thing.
That's good. अब जो बात आ रही है तो उत्तर प्रदेश का जिक्र, और and we are fortunate to have Mr. Naveen Khandelwal with us. Like he just told me that he was associated with Pilibhit at one time. और उत्तर प्रदेश आजकल दोबारा से मीडिया में सुर्खियों में है, लेकिन गलत वजहों से. भेड़िया भेड़ियों का जो एक आतंक है वो आज कोई भी टीवी चैनल आप खोल के देख लीजिए, आपको मिलेगा। पीलीभीत के अंदर भी मैं समझता हूँ कि खंडेलवाल साहब, there has been so much of human deaths which have taken place in Pili-Bheet. Apparently because Pili-Bheet, unlike Corbett, it does not have a proper buffer zone. How do you see the picture in Uttar Pradesh as to the coexistence between humans and wildlife? Has it taken a hit, or is something meaningful being done by the administration, forest department, I mean?
Again, Uttar Pradesh mein I will say कि Uttar Pradesh में we are talking about wildlife. We majorly focus on Trai area because that is the mainly area where wildlife is existing. And Pilibhit, Dudhwa, and you are talking Barhaish, we have good number of population, and recent efforts had resulted in increased density of wildlife. And same with the human population. Human population also increasing. So density increase होने के कारण दोनों wildlife की and humans की the interaction जो earlier उतना नहीं था, the interaction between human and wildlife is more. And I'm not saying कि interaction evolved just like today. Interaction happening from last 50 or more than that. But the negative interaction is happening, or it is getting more noticed more. I'm talking about Pilibhit. Pilibhit, the community living there, as pointed out by earlier speakers, the tolerance limit of the people, the community, is much higher there. Unless they are directly involved, the fatality is in their family, then they are organized. Otherwise, if they see tiger in the village, they are not that hostile to the animal. And this is because the effort of the forest department. If we are able to communicate, just seeing a tiger in your area, it's not a conflict. Then you can manage that conflict. Again, forest department is doing a lot of effort because strictly we speak coexistence of human and wildlife. At a single point of time, if we take spatial and temporal component, human and wildlife cannot coexist at same place at the same time. So we have to manage that. Co-occurrence at the same time, it is really difficult. We can manage the interaction, but if they are existing at the same time, definitely sooner or later negative interaction will come. So we have to create a buffer. Luckily, in Tarai area, we have sugarcane population, as you mentioned earlier. Pilibhit don't have buffer area, but we have sugarcane crop. And sugarcane crop is the main buffer area, which is acting between the wildlife area and the main population area. So sugarcane is helping forest department in managing the interaction. Again, because sugarcane crop does not need so much intervention during the time of, as the crop ripens, you don't need much intervention by the farmers in the crop. So most of the time the field is empty. Once maximum you will need 2-3 times weeding or something like that, but you don't need much intervention, and the most of the time the field is empty. If you can manage the harvest season, when there is a harvesting of sugarcane, if you manage that, the whole the interaction will be minimal. Again, now because the density is increased, the tiger is going southwards, because from Tarai area it is moving towards south district. Like right now I'm posted in Sitapur, and Sitapur have reserve forest area at least 100 kilometers from there. Right now there are at least 3 to 4 tigers in Sitapur area which have no forest area at all, no reserve forest area at all. Why? Because we have rivers there and riverine ecosystem there. And because of sugarcane field, we are managing a tiger without not a single negative interaction since last 3 or 4 years. So it is possible. We have to manage the interaction, and department is doing a lot of efforts. Because in core area, we are fencing that area, except the corridor area. Because if we fence the corridor area, the interaction of the wildlife will limit. Except the corridor area, we are fencing by chain link fencing, and the movement of animals restricted from entering into the community area. Again, we have initiated a good program called Bagh Mitra. Bagh Mitra was initiated in Pilibhit only, and it is a community steward program in which we handpick volunteers from the village where the sensitivity is higher, and we train them. We train them to identify the signs we train them to identify the animals, and we train them to communicate our message to the local community. If forest department communicate to the community, the message reaches to the community, but it is not that effective. If the community member speaks for us, it is highly effective. And through that program, we have managed the interaction. Again, I'm saying the interaction with tiger and human, we have managed it quite well. And the number of negative incidences, as we speak, the injuries or cattle depredation or human death, we brought down it to very minimal. And it acts as a cushion for us. If there is a conflict incidences, the Bagh method helps us to cushion, to communicate our message and to help us in the rescue operation also.
Right.
Thank you.
Amit Verma ji, I would like to come back to you again. You know, अभी जो इससे पहले discussion हुआ था panel में, we spoke about the role being played by resorts. I think Mr. Khati said something about it. I believe resorts serves two kind of purpose. At one, they help, you know, at one level they help propagating the cause of wildlife by bringing in more tourists, you know, who can spread the good word. But at the same time, you know, resort owners have their own compulsions, you know, like they always want repeat customers. And so a lot of unethical things might be going along. When you were in Corbett Park and now you are in Niti Aayog, so have you come across, these instances and, what all can be done to curb them if these things are happening, you know?
So wherever there are businesses involved, it has to be profitable. So a business cannot run without profit. And resorts are no different. They have to be profitable, and for that they need customers. So to believe that a resort owner would, they'll have some standards in terms of conservation standards which they'll follow, but to believe that they are going to jeopardize their profitability is, I think, being unfair to them as well. Having said that, we have to really create a framework where we can manage the ill effects of bringing in too much of tourism in the forest areas. So, for example, I remember Khati sir himself was the first chief wildlife warden to issue very detailed guidelines on how tourism is going to be managed in Corbett Tiger Reserve, and that happens in most of the tiger areas and other areas also. So, so there are certain checks and balances. I think in the era which we live in now, with social media being so active and the technology and AI and other tools being available to us. So while we understand that there would always be a pressure in terms of resorts to keep their business going throughout the year. I mean, we see in Corbett that initially probably, in 80s is when the first tiger tourism started and the first resort came in. Right now we have more than 300 resorts which have engulfed the whole tiger reserve in all directions.
Resorts creating pressure on the wildlife.
Yes, the major corridors are definitely getting affected. Many of the areas which are deep inside the forest, the patches of land which we always thought was a fallow land which would probably be used for grazing by villagers, but it is privately owned. They have all, you can see them springing up with resorts all throughout. So there is a certain degree of disturbance there inside the forest. But I think the tolerance of wild animals to this kind of disturbance, which is not harmful to them, is also pretty high. I mean, if you see the safari, the way the safari is conducted in the tiger reserves, it is a miracle that nobody gets hurt there, right? I mean, the tiger is there. There are 20 jeeps which are just jumping over the tiger, but the tiger still tolerates them, probably believing that they are not there to harm the tiger as such. So while I'm not justifying that kind of behavior, but what I'm trying to say is that if the community is getting benefited in terms of the employment gains which are coming in through the resort owners, the acceptability of coexistence increases, and I think resorts also play an important role in that sense for the coexistence. Yeah.
Shukla ji, you being a senior forest officer, and since you can take us to a bird's eye perspective of the things, what we've been talking about. Do you think that this increased human intervention in the matters of wildlife, say by way of resorts, by way of more tourists coming in, by way of more gypsies, do you think this coexistence will get affected in a negative way, or will it actually strengthen the wildlife in India? Because in Africa, I'm told, the entire Africa is more or less, dependent on wildlife tourism. So there, it's an industry. Here, wildlife is not the main industry. So how do you look at these things? And I believe it's going to be a tightrope walk.
Right. Uh, you must be aware, like recently a committee has been constituted by the Honorable Supreme Court to look into all these issues related to tourism, especially in the tiger reserves area. And one of the major concern is about the resorts which are coming up in those areas, and what should be the regulation, what should be the noise level, how to regulate this, and other any sort of activities which is taking place in the tiger reserve as well as the protected areas. So this is one thing. When we compare it with other countries, like in African countries, or like mostly the wildlife is more diversity, and it is in Africa only. But even in Africa also, like the countries like in Kenya, the Masai Mara, that is also unregulated tourism. And this, in many ways, it is harming the wildlife, and there is a large decline in the population of many of the big five species, as well as the antelopes, which like the wildebeest and zebra also. Some of the countries like Botswana and Namibia, they are doing really good. And one very successful example comes from the Rwanda. Like these mountain gorillas are confined to only 3 countries like Rwanda, Uganda, and the Congo. So in the Virunga National Parks, that is, you can go and see the mountain gorillas. But the disciplined tourism, I'll just give you an example. Like when I visited there, that is one of the costliest tourism, just for visiting the mountain gorillas in the wild for 1 hour. You have to pay $1,500 per person. So that is sort of one of the, and that is on the on-foot safari, that is a trekking safari. But the clock starts as soon as you see your first gorilla, and the time, as soon as the clock kicks 1 hour, you have to just leave back that place. But here in India, I have seen that many of the tiger reserves and many of the protected areas, the most of the violation of the tourism rules is done by the so-called good photographers who try to do, there is always a temptation to get as good an image as it is possible. So many times they try to break the rules to get a good image at the cost of, not only at the cost of disturbing the animal, as well causing the trouble to the other tourists there. They'll try to break the row and will try to go always in the front. Many times, in some cases, we have heard that they get down of the vehicle. Then again, unethical practice related to photography by the photographers, like in some of the other protected areas, if you are going to click the image of a raptor, you many times nail the some of the prey species, maybe reptiles or some small rodents and other animals. So these are the practices which are unethical and should not be encouraged. Now again, coming to the tiger reserves, again, the regulated tourism is very, very necessary, and the responsible tourism. Like one example Dheeraj gave about Corbett also, and I was also field director in Kanha Tiger Reserve. So that time I started using the mobile device in the vehicles. So now that is being used in Kanha, Pech, as well as in Tadoba. So that regulates the tourism where you cannot go do over speeding, you cannot zone jump, you cannot go off-roading to non-tourism areas, and you cannot overstop at a place when a sighting is happening. So there are a lot many regulations to bring in. Similarly, like the committee which has been constituted, so one of the major issues is about the noise level. Because some of the tiger reserves, the resort, they have become the wedding destinations also. So we have also to look into, and even the people who go there, and they have to see that they don't create a lot of noise. Obviously, the animals, they get used to it, but that is not a normal behavior. If you go to a non-tourism area, if you see a tiger is very shy. But if you go in the tourism area, we'll see that despite being so many vehicles at that place, just because from the very early stage being a cub, the tiger has seen that presence of human and the vehicles. So they don't get disturbed, but that is not a normal behavior of an animal. So we have to give them more space. And the Supreme Court has also observed that it has to be ecocentric, not tiger-centric, in the tourism in any of these areas. So we need to appreciate and work for that.
Mr. Mallikarjun, you have achieved stupendous results in Sanjay Gandhi Park. Everybody is talking about it. Films are being made. Articles are being written day in and day out. Do you have a golden formula where, this thing can be replicated in other places, which is seeing a lot of unrest, a lot of strife between humans and wildlife? For instance, not only in Chandrapur, there are lots of other places, in which, innocent people are getting killed, or even innocent wildlife is getting wiped out.
As far as our experience in Sanjay Gandhi National Park is concerned, collaboration with the stakeholder is more important. That is what the success story or this mantra of any peaceful coexistence with the wildlife and human beings, that will come with the active collaboration with all the stakeholders, mainly with the local communities. So that is what the policy began. You see in many of the states, they are doing, the degree may be varying. In some places it may be small, it may be in bigger terms we are engaging the communities. Wherever you are engaging communities in a bigger way, there the level of conflict is less because level of acceptance is more. So that's what you can see in a busy city like Mumbai. So people have accepted that. Everybody knows that every day our leopards will go out to the housing societies, they will come back.
True.
But people have accepted that one.
Right.
So that is what I say, that community engagement is more important.
Okay, I think we are coming to an end now. My last question would be to Mr. Naveen Khandelwal. Khandelwal Sahab, like you heard, people's intervention, people's help, people's involvement is required. So are you doing such things in Uttar Pradesh? Because I have this in mind, that we actually made a film a few years ago, how there's a place called Mangla Jodi in Odisha, where the entire village consisted of poachers at one time. And now everybody in that village has become a conservationist. They're saving wildlife. And Uttar Pradesh, why I'm asking is, Uttar Pradesh is probably the most populous state in India. So you have like human beings outside the park, inside the park, all over. तो क्या कर रहे हैं इसके ऊपर कुछ?
आपका क्वेश्चन बहुत राइट है. मतलब मैं अपने एक्सपीरियंस से बताऊंगा, जब मैं इंटरेक्ट करता था कम्युनिटी से, तो उनका एक बेसिक क्वेश्चन होता था कि सर आपने टाइगर रिजर्व यहाँ ला दिया, हमें क्या दिया आपने? हमें तो टाइगर मार रहा है, हम क्या करें, मतलब हमें क्या मिला? तो दैट इज व्हाट वी नीड टू कन्वे, कि टाइगर रिजर्व से आपको क्या मिल रहा है. अगर वो फेस हम चेंज नहीं कर पाएंगे तो वी आर फेलिंग इन सम कंजर्वेशन. तो वी आर डूइंग अ लॉट ऑफ थिंग्स इन दैट डायरेक्शन. अगेन इफ फर्स्ट इज वी आर इन्वॉल्विंग दैम इन tourism. We have created lots of self-help groups, EDCs, around the Tiger Reserve area. In Dudhwa, because we have tribal community there, we are involving Tharus in lot of tourism activity. Otherwise, we are providing alternative livelihood, like we are producing honey. We are giving them some works to the humans. And when we engage them in other activities also, one things we are doing, we are providing them the benefit of government schemes. In India, we have lots of schemes by state-run schemes and central schemes. But that is not reaching to the people because they don't have knowledge. If forest department is helping the community near the forest to achieve the benefit of those schemes, it's a great thing. They will appreciate the effort of department. If we are just doing nothing, just getting the scheme help to them from district administration or something, it is a great effort for them. So we change their attitude towards forest department, and if we change towards forest department, the attitude towards wildlife also gets changed. So that are the efforts we are doing in wildlife.
Okay, so thank you very much, sir, all the participants. It has been a wonderful session. I wish we had more time and we could have gone ahead. And thank you to all the members of the audience also for being patient. Thank you.
Thank you so much, all the panelists. Thank you so much, Ajay sir.